This game is soulless trash.
Fighting games are not a product. They are an art form.
This franchise is a work of art, and you turned it into a pachinko machine. This is nostalgia bait. You're nostalgia baiting me right now. These games aren't art, they're just gambling for children. This mindset for most people is cathartic in a countercultural, anti-establishment sort of way. But when it comes to actually making good games, it can be really counterproductive. In extreme cases, you even see this sentiment of, "This game is my art. I poured my heart and soul into it, and therefore your critiques don't matter, and if you don't like the game, you just don't understand it. Or you're just review bombing it because of your hatred and bitterness and contrarianism. It's not just some product." Hello, I'm Amen Gamer, here with Novel Axis Creative Systems, the world's premier creative media consulting firm. And we're here today to put our professional integrity on the line, and our reputation. We're putting our balls right here on the table to convince you that, fundamentally, games are products. And for that matter, art is too. Let's begin by quickly defining our terms. Products are things that are created with the intent to be valuable to other people, usually with the hope that people will find them to be valuable enough to pay money in exchange for them. They give you money, and they get the value of the product without having to create it themselves. The value of a product is usually determined by how it can be interacted or engaged with. For example, you would interact with a hammer in order to apply force to a small area, fairly self-explanatory. Now, philosophers and scholars have struggled since time immemorial to settle on a comprehensive definition for art. Well, here at Novel Axis, we specialize in the absolute cutting edge of ideas. So it's my pleasure to unveil for you here today the ultimate definition of art. Art is something which is created with the intent to convey or evoke a message when observed. This message may be a specific thought or feeling, or the message could simply be a concept meant to provoke thoughts or feelings. Now, because thoughts and feelings are highly individual, most art will mean slightly different things to different people. But the key point is that it is intended to convey some type of meaning, no matter how profound or mundane that meaning may be. We'll come back to this, but first we need to go over how games are products. Well, you spend time, money, and effort to create a game that hopefully someone will want to play. Usually, you want enough people to purchase the game to make more money than the resources you spent creating the game. However, this amount of money is much more than the cost of one game, so you can't just dupe someone into buying one copy and be done with it. So how do you sell more than one copy? Well, aside from marketing, which is outside the scope of today's discussion, the best way to do this is to create a good game that provides a lot of value for your players. Of course, this begs the question, what constitutes a good game? At its most fundamental level, the value of a game is the overall amount of engagement of a given player with the game. Think of it like a graph. Say you have a challenging, deep boss fight that allows players to engage with different mechanics in the game to tackle it in different ways. For players who enjoy a challenge and have been properly onboarded to the game's mechanics, this boss fight could constitute a lot of engagement, and therefore value. On the opposite end, you could have a short indie game with a novel style that is incredibly thought-provoking and causes players to talk about it and discuss it and obsess over it for weeks after completing it. Even though they spend a relatively small amount of time on the game itself, this discussion after the fact is also engagement. It would therefore stand to reason that the purpose of the design of a game is for players to engage with it as much as possible. This fits the definition of a product. Hey, I see you typing up a truth nuke in the comments about how I'm being so reductive about this multidisciplinary art form. Well, here's the thing, I agree with you, but we're nowhere near being done with this presentation, so I'll ask you to please hold comments until the end. Yes, you heard me correctly. Games are art, some more obviously than others. But how? Well, for starters, they have art in them. Visual art, architectural art, audio art, narrative art, you name it. Similar to film, the best games synergize these different art forms in order to better engage the player. Now you might be thinking, whoa, games are an interactive medium. The player's choices subvert the artist's intent, so they can't possibly be on the same level as film. Well, let me pose to you a question. Who decides what the player gets to do in a video game. Let's go over some examples of obvious art in games. Alright, low-hanging fruit, but think about Gwyn's boss fight in Dark Souls. The beautiful but somber soundtrack, the burnt-out visual design of both Gwyn and the arena, the way Gwyn's moveset mirrors that of the player, driving home the narrative parallel between the two. In linking the flame and saving the world, you're also dooming it to another cycle of decay and corruption. Even if you haven't read all the item descriptions nor watched a 3-hour lore video, you know that you're right on the cusp of something great, but tragic. Many people find it thought-provoking, as well as mechanically engaging. Even as far back as Mountain King on the Atari 2600, you can find this artistic synergy. You find the artifacts, get the thing, and then the whole game just goes apeshit. Enemies start coming out of the woodwork, soundtrack ramps up to match. It's designed to convey this panic and excitement as you frantically race to the final portion of the game. So where do game mechanics fit into this? Well, at their most basic level, they're designed to make you interact with the rest of the game in a specific way. Whether they reward tight execution, experimentation, or player expression, or whatever, mechanics are the window through which you see the story and the visuals and the audio. They're a lens that colors every other part of the experience. Regardless of how they're monetized, these voice crack. Regardless of how they're monetized, these games are designed to make you feel things, think thoughts, and engage. So, games are products, but they're also art. How do we reconcile this seeming contradiction? Well, here's where we at Novel Access Creative Systems are putting our professional reputation on the line. Our dick is swinging in the wind. Art is a product. Any art is, but especially good art. Think about it. The purpose of art, as we touched on earlier, is to convey some type of message to an observer. How does an observer receive this message? By engaging with the artwork. In order to engage with a painting, you have to see the painting. In order to engage with a piece of music, you have to listen to it. In order to understand Nuki, God help you, you have to watch Nuki. Let's flip this back around and take it full circle. If you're an artist publishing any type of artwork, you're doing so with the express intent that it is observed and digested. Period, end of story. Now, economically speaking, published art is almost always a product, just because of the economic realities of producing artwork. If you can buy food and shelter with your art, then you can keep making more art. However, this obviously isn't the whole story. After all, there are plenty of other ways to get food and shelter. But art is a product even in a vacuum, economically speaking. Suppose an artist is simply publishing art for the love of the game. The goal is still for their target audience to engage with whatever message they're trying to convey. Look, even if you're only making art for yourself, like you're drawing something to encapsulate a feeling or a memory or a moment in time, you still want to make something that you will engage with when you look at the drawing later. And obviously, people who deliberately observe art do so because they enjoy engaging with the art. This engagement is valuable to them. All right, let me give you more examples. Most art has a hook, something to get your attention and prompt you to dig deeper. For paintings, usually this is the presence of something visually stimulating or interesting. Take the Mona Lisa. There's a kind of funky looking gal, big what. But if you know anything about Da Vinci's other work, or even other contemporary paintings, it's immediately striking. What did he mean by this? If you're the beginning of Candy Shop, yeah, you want to keep listening. In Armored Core, boom, you either figure out the controls and defeat 2 weak enemies, or you die and you fail to become a mech mercenary. If you dig the whole futuristic cyber mercenary vibe, you want more of this world, you want to engage with it. Just like you put a nice comfortable handle on a hammer to make people want to use the hammer. So there you have it. Games and any other art form are products. Now, we at Novel Access Creative Systems value your feedback. Are we full of shit? Engage with this video in the comment section down below and let us know. Until next time.